Welcome to NEK VT Rocks. My guest today is Woody Page. Woody is our new state representative. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
What made you decide to run? What stroke of insanity?
Well, it's not something I had ever considered before. As you know, I ran for city council, and I'm on the planning commission here,
Right.
and you know, that was something I enjoyed doing, and representing our city, you know.
Yeah.
But out of the blue one day, Gary Vians, who is our current representative,
Right. For another 2 days or something.
Yes, he stopped by the house and he said, I was upstairs doing something, and he came to the door, and Ann didn't recognize him, and you know, who are you? And well, I'm Gary Vians, and I was wondering whether Woody's here, you know. So Ann yells up to me and says, Woody, it's Gary Vians. And I can't tell you on the air exactly what was going through my mind at the time, because
Yeah.
I know Gary.
Yeah.
And I went down, and Gary, you know, put together this proposal. He said, I'd like you to run in my place. I'm not running next year, and I want you to be my replacement. I said, well, you know, I'll think about it, you know, and I'll get back to you. And I did, and the rest is history. But you can thank Gary Vians, I guess.
So we can thank him or blame him, whichever, whatever.
Absolutely, yes.
And for you, it'll probably be both of those emotions. And
Well.
certainly for your wife.
Yes,
And probably
yes.
your cats.
Yes, yes. But yeah, so far it's been an interesting process. You know.
So what you've done so far is the introductory part?
Yes, a couple of weeks ago, there was an orientation in Montpelier at the State House. It was presented by the Snelling Center, and I don't know whether you know anything about the Snelling family, but you know, former Governor Snelling, you know, for many years was our governor here, and political family. When he passed away, his wife, I believe, was nominated or put into the lieutenant governor position, so she also played a role in politics. But originally he was a representative, and then he made his way up, you know, up the chain to governor. And when they both passed away, he and his wife, they set up this center, you know. And I guess before, years ago, they never had an orientation program for new legislators, and this is something that was needed, and through his family they set it up, and it was really nice. It was 3 days of literally lots of meetings, and it was a fire hose of information for everyone. And it was just a very well done program, and I might add, all the new representatives were there. We all had our name tags, and I found it interesting that you didn't know whether I was a Republican or a Democrat, and I didn't know whether you were a Republican or a Democrat. It was basically everybody coming together and you know, looking to learn as much as we could, you know, for the betterment of our communities. And it was only after that you kind of maybe had an inclination who was from what party and their thoughts. But it was very amicable and very friendly, you know.
It's one of the really cool things about Vermont is that people do cross party lines. It's not the same obsessive, crazy, I'm this party and therefore I can't look beyond. It's not like what we're seeing in Washington right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And to add on to that, there was one representative, her name is Representative Rogers. I don't recall her first name, but she and her opponent, and she's near Bakersfield, I believe. She and her opponent were debating various issues, and then after, they came together and they played a couple of pieces. She is I think a cello player, and he was a violin or viola player. And it received a lot of a lot of attention nationally because of they're both different parties, but at the end, you know,
They can still talk to each other.
They talked and they played music together, and it was
Right.
also when we were at the orientation. You know, it was pointed out,
Right.
you know, that these two could do such a thing in such a nice state as Vermont.
And so they should.
Yes,
I
yeah,
mean, we are
absolutely.
such a small state. We're smaller than so many big cities that if we can't play nicely in the sandbox, how can we ever expect the state to move forward?
Right, right. And for the betterment of our people. you know.
Right. And I would hope that that's why everybody who's there is there, because they believe they have something to contribute.
Yeah, I think, well, the ones that I met during the orientation
Yeah.
and the ones that are incumbents and are still in office, I think they all feel that way. They're there to try to do some good and to help their
Mhm.
their communities.
Do you get any choice over which committees you work on?
The Speaker of the House requested inputs,
Mhm.
and I've submitted them. And the Republican leadership also meets with the Speaker and goes over that list of committees that I would like to be on. But there's, who knows?
When do you find out?
Probably when I...
Day one.
Day one, absolutely, yes. And
Yeah.
and I'm probably, it's not... I obviously didn't put in for appropriations or something
Oh, I
like
don't
that.
know. Think big.
But I'm sure those particular committees, like appropriations and, they're already spoken for, and
Yeah.
others will probably
Sure.
get those positions.
What would you like to work on?
Well, I put down commerce and development was my first choice.
Mhm.
Obviously, we need to do some development around here.
Ain't that the truth?
and increase our commerce here
Yeah.
and try to, bring businesses in if we can.
Mhm.
I put transportation, energy, healthcare. Those were the...
Quite a long laundry list.
Yes, we have five, and, out of the
Yeah.
five,
They'll find
maybe
something.
hopefully, some of my other colleagues have said, "Oh, you'll probably get Military Affairs Committee because of my background." I'm hoping not. I'm hoping it'll be something
Right.
different, But wherever I'm placed, I'll be happy to serve.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I understand the logistics of the military affairs, but that's not what we need up here.
Right. Unless we...
And frankly, you're supposed to be representing us.
Yes, unless we put in a new base or something up here,
Oh. Well.
At the airport, we'll bring in F-35s or something like that,
That would be certainly an interesting issue to raise.
Yes.
You would certainly get a lot of notoriety really,
Absolutely, yes.
really fast.
Yes.
You represent us.
Mhm.
Obviously, we've elected you. How will people contact you? Because once you're in Montpelier, the job isn't to hide there away
No,
from
no,
us.
no, no.
We raise
Well, I
issues.
think most people know where I live.
Yeah, true.
Certainly, you can reach me by telephone.
Yeah.
Also, the legislature has an email for me, an
Mhm.
email address. There's also telephone lines into the State House where you can call there and leave
Yeah.
messages. So there's any number of ways, or even shopping downtown, in
Right.
the grocery store. I'm sure there'll be lots of people that will.
I usually
say
see our
something.
senators in pick and shovel.
Okay. Well, wherever, I'm sure, if somebody has an issue, they'll certainly
Right.
raise it with me.
Something we've talked about as people, citizens here, is that there aren't many general meeting places to meet with those who we elect, either for the state or for the city. And we've talked about doing coffee house kinds of things. Would that be something you'd be willing to participate
Sure.
in?
I know you also have isn't there a legislative breakfast at the east side where
Yes.
there's questions, and
That's-
it's kind of like I guess kind of like the old program firing line where
Yes.
where you come and you tell what you're.
But that's very choreographed. It's not exactly a free exchange with a couple of people and a cup of coffee. Well, actually, there is coffee.
Yeah.
But you're restricted to a specific question and a specific time, as opposed to being able to expand on a discussion. And it usually involves all of those present, so that would be 2 representatives and a senator, all feeling they have to put their 10 cents in. And for some of them, that can be 30 cents, you know.
Yes.
You know, some are
Some like
fairly
to talk,
verbose,
yes.
shall we say.
Yes.
So to meet in a more formal discussion and actually talk about local concerns, as opposed to the whole of Essex and Orleans, is certainly something that some of us are interested in organising, if it's something that we know people would be willing to participate in.
Well, I think that would be fine. I think there are lots of people that would enjoy it and
Yeah.
and have a say, and it'd be interesting to, I suppose, for representatives or senators
Right.
to also listen to what their constituents are
Exactly.
thinking and
Right.
and how they feel about
Right.
certain topics, you know, rather than, you know, it's not all about me, it's about
It's not.
you and you and others, you know.
It would also dispel some of the wishful thinking, because we elect somebody, you in this case, and our hope is that you can go sailing into that golden dome and you can fix all the things that ail us. Well, you know, it might take you more than those 2 years.
Absolutely. And there's a lot, as we mentioned earlier, there's not one right answer. There's
Right.
lots of answers, and there's lots of, I guess, negotiations and things
Right.
like that go into trying to solve a problem. You
And
know.
a ton of information gathering, so that you don't create a different problem as opposed to the one you hope you're fixing.
Well, you know, the Hippocratic oath of
Right.
doing no harm. And, you know, I mean, lots of people have great ideas. They want to put a bill together and,
Mhm.
and get it passed. But, you know, sometimes those bills are not the right things. And once a bill is passed,
Then we're stuck.
absolutely, it's very difficult to turn around a bill, as we can see with certain things like Act 46 that's going on now, you know.
Yes, exactly. And that's a juggernaut that probably should have been revisioned before it ever got to be in the place it's in.
Mm-hmm.
And another really simple one is the marijuana legislation, which is technically a simple issue, has morphed into this craziness.
Yes.
You can, but you can't. You will, but you won't. Come
Yes,
on.
yes. It'll be interesting to see what happens in the next session, to see what is passed and,
Right.
and what isn't.
Yeah. Do you have particular issues that you're really interested in doing something with? I mean, commerce and transport is a broad category,
Mhm.
but do you have some real particular?
Well, as I just
goals?
mentioned, Act 46, as you may know, Irisburg is being
Is
forced.
rebelling.
Yes, is being
Good
forced
for
to
them.
consolidate
Yeah.
with another district, and they don't want to for various reasons. And so when I was down in Montpelier, I asked to put together a bill that would require citizens, if they want to consolidate,
Mhm.
that they must vote for consolidation. That is not something that the state forces, you know, an area to
Mhm.
consolidate. So I have that I submitted, and we'll see what happens. There's other representatives there that are also working on similar bills.
Sure.
So I would imagine that probably mine won't be the one that will go forward.
Mm.
Maybe it'll be a conglomeration
Yeah.
of other bills, and hopefully we can turn this around where, you know, if a district doesn't want to, for various reasons, to consolidate, why should they, you know?
Right.
You know, and I think it does matter when, you know, community votes, you know, for or against something. And if they're against something, then they shouldn't be forced to do something against their will. It's undemocratic, you know.
Right.
So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah,
But
and
that's one thing that I've done already.
That's great. Didn't even, citizen who's curious but didn't have a clue that you could actually submit bill ideas ahead of time.
Yeah,
That's great.
yeah. I met with these individuals that helped me design the bill and write
Formulate it, yeah.
write the legal wording for it. And I've looked at it. I've made some suggestions, and I was told that there are other representatives that are involved with this issue, and we'll see where it goes.
That's really cool, because that is an issue that needs a big spotlight. I mean, it's fine for some of the more urban areas to be pushing for something that doesn't apply for a rural area.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's rural versus urban, you know. And
Always.
And it seems like the urban areas are for some of the consolidation, and they're probably better able to do that, whereas we have a much greater geographic area.
Exactly.
And it just doesn't, one size doesn't fit all. And then the other thing is that the Act was designed to help property owners, as you know,
Yes.
reduce our property taxes.
Yes.
And this hasn't happened, you know, and if anything, it may very well go up. Yes.
Exactly.
So, and as you know, the biggest part of our budget is, you know, is education, you know.
Mhm.
Probably about 25% of it
Right.
goes towards education, we
And
have
education done right should cost money, and I don't
Yes,
think anybody
yes,
complains about that.
absolutely, you know.
But it's with everything else.
You know, we have declining enrollments here in
Sure.
our public schools. There's requirements that certain, you know, programs will be provided to schools, and without funding.
Of course.
You know, and yet we have, you know, more teachers, more aides, and everything, you know, just keeps going up.
And more paperwork, and less
Absolutely,
and less
yeah.
human contact.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll see what happens with this bill.
Yeah.
And what goes on with it.
Is there an education committee?
Oh, yes.
So you
yes.
could be on that, too?
Absolutely, yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens
Yeah.
with that as well.
Have you submitted any other ideas, bills?
I did. Another issue, as you know, our population is getting older.
No.
And we are trying to attract people to the state.
Yeah.
And as we said, it's expensive to live here in
Yes, it
Vermont.
is.
And compared to other places.
Right.
And as a military retiree and government retiree, there are a lot of other places to go to that are a lot less expensive
Mhm.
and that are more welcoming than the state of Vermont. So I submitted a bill that says we will not tax federal or state or military pension programs. Now, we'll see what happens with
Oh,
that.
what about the rest of us riffraff?
Well, we
Oh.
want to attract people that
Yes.
have resources to the area, that
Uh-huh.
are not a drain to the state.
Right.
That have skills.
Sure.
And that can help, you know, build their communities. And a lot of these people are at a fairly young age when they retire.
Right.
That they can still do something else.
Absolutely.
And there are a lot of states that have done this,
Mhm.
and I just thought, well, you know, we'll see what happens, you know.
Yeah. No, it makes sense.
I don't know as if it'll go anywhere. It
Yeah.
probably won't. But
Let's
you
try.
know, look around the state. Massachusetts has a similar
Mm-hmm.
program. We have New Hampshire right across the river that, you know, doesn't have a tax. And you have a lot of businesses that say, hey, I'm going elsewhere. So
Vermont also does something else that's really strange for those of us who have moved to this state, which many of us didn't know about ahead of time, is a lot of states tax money before it goes into something like a 403B or whatever other
Mhm.
company savings plan. They tax ahead of time. Pennsylvania does that, so do some other states. Vermont taxes the money on the way out. So those of us who have that as our pension plan are screwed because we're taxed at both ends.
Yeah.
And the state doesn't give a flying whoop-de-doo. That has an impact on people who are choosing to move here, because when they find that out, they say, you don't want to play? You don't want to play nicely? I'm gone.
And I heard that many times when I was running, that
Yeah.
I've got, you know, the typical response was, I've got just a couple more years until I retire,
Mhm.
and then I'm leaving. I'm
Right.
leaving Vermont. I'm going to Wyoming, or I'm going to Texas, or Florida.
Well, they're certainly
or-
not looking for better weather when they go to Wyoming, so you know there's another reason.
Well, I've lived in Wyoming, and there's some benefits there too. It's
Yeah,
got
it's gorgeous.
the longest amount of sunlight there. It's a great place for solar energy,
Yeah.
you know. And,
Their winters are harsh too.
Actually, not as harsh as here. I
No?
mean, they have
Oh.
a lot of blowing winds
Yeah.
along the plains, and if it snows, it generally blows into Nebraska, you know. But yeah, it's a very it's a good state to retire to. You know.
Hmm.
So.
Too bad we didn't know that ahead of time.
Well, we actually looked at it before we returned here. We had
Yeah.
a conference to go to, so we went out and went back to our place where we had once lived, and we decided to come back to Vermont, our home. So.
But your roots pulled you back here.
Yes, yeah. My family was, you know, originally from here, several generations
Mhm.
on my mother's side, and my father and his family originally, my grandfather, came up from Chicopee, and
Mhm.
My grandfather was part of a industrial family down in Chicopee and Springfield,
Uh-huh.
and I have no idea why he moved up here. I guess he just liked the area and liked the people,
Yeah.
and after my father had completed his duty in World War II, he came back here as well. So it attracted him as
Yeah.
well. But my mom, on her side of the family, many generations of her family were from the Holland area, and there's
Mhm.
a cemetery full of relatives, and she left, you know, to go to college
Right.
and outside of Vermont, and for about 20 years she was a school teacher throughout New England, you know.
Mhm.
But I think her last teaching assignment was at the old Barton Academy, and then eventually she worked as a counselor at the State Employment Office. So that's a little bit about my family
Yeah.
background.
So is there a way that all of you who represent the Northeast Kingdom can encourage your colleagues in that Golden Globe to think of the Northeast Kingdom as something other than just a dumping ground or an afterthought? Because it certainly seems as though resources are scarcer here than they are in many of the other areas, maybe because they make more noise.
Well, and they have more representatives,
more
more
representatives.
people. I hope that view of the Northeast Kingdom is changing. You know, there seems to be those individuals that are not from here originally, almost a fear of coming over to the Northeast Kingdom.
You need a passport.
No, I don't mean crossing the border, but
No.
a genuine fear of being in the kingdom. It's out there. It's kind of like I don't know, I shouldn't probably say this, but it's almost like West Virginia almost, you know, in
Yes.
Virginia, you know.
Mhm.
And that's not the case here. You have...
No, it's not. It's gorgeous.
Well, it's gorgeous, and it's people. You have a lot of educated
Right.
people, a lot of resourceful people. You know, it's a lot of friendly people
I
that
agree.
that you know would literally down to earth and
Yep.
and would give the shirt off their backs.
Yeah, I mean,
for you.
clearly I didn't come from here. You
Mhm.
obviously did. But it doesn't help when we have things like a landfill that wants to expand. That's not an asset for this area. We should not be seen as a garbage can for the rest of the state and for other states. I mean, is that something that those of you who are here, even though I know that's revenue generating, for example, the state's making a lot of money off that landfill, but that's not a reason to treat us as a garbage can.
I couldn't agree with you more. You know, it was kind of upsetting when I was, you know, after I graduated and, you know, was working elsewhere. And
Mhm.
I would read in the papers, you know, some of the activities that were going on here in Newport.
Yeah.
You know, how we were getting a prison, you
Yeah,
know, as
lucky us.
as opposed to a fish hatchery,
Mhm.
and that was a very real thing. I remember Representative Fife looking to try to encourage a fish hatchery to come to
Right.
Lake Memphremagog, you know, and it's ironic. As I remember reading, it was said that, you know, the water wasn't clean enough or something like that, you know.
Mhm.
So we got the correctional department instead,
Yeah.
or we get the wind turbines. You know, we
Right.
destroy
Destroy a ridge line.
mountaintop
Yeah.
to put these wind turbines up, and we did have the dump or the landfill
Mount
previously.
Trashmore,
Yes.
which is going to be our new ski resort, right? Not,
Yes.
obviously. Crazy.
And it's expanding, and
We hope not.
well, I don't remember, but it isn't. I think the state has already approved.
The hearing is
the
in
expansion.
January, so there's a lot of opposition to it.
There's more to come from it.
And if those of you who are active in the state by then can add your more than 10 cents, that we should not be seen as that way.
We should have more than one landfill.
Of course.
And certainly Chittenden. I remember Ann and I were talking, my wife
Mhm.
Ann and I were talking about it this morning. A couple of years ago, there was some contaminated fill.
Yes,
that
it came here.
Absolutely. It all comes here, you
And
know. They don't want it.
They
you know.
in Chittenden had the gall to complain about how much it cost.
Yes.
Ah,
Yes.
right.
And we're left with it
Yeah.
forever.
There was going to be a landfill in Williston, but imagine this, the little yuppies down there didn't want it.
Yeah, not in my backyard.
That's right. But we don't want it either, and we shouldn't have it.
Well, the other thing is, we're taking garbage from
Other
from other
states.
states, and
Yeah.
I don't know whether we can restrict that or stop it and just take what we produce within
Mhm.
Vermont. I don't know. I don't know the
If-
legal ramifications of
I'm
that.
sure businesses can get away with many things, and that may be one of them, but if the landfill doesn't expand, then we know the number of years left on what we've got are
Mhm.
limited. That would be the perfect time for the state to be looking at alternatives, which they should have been doing a long time ago.
Absolutely, yeah. They weren't taking the long view, and.
So here's another bill for you.
Yes. The other issue regarding the landfill is not only are we taking waste
Yeah.
from other places, it will have a direct impact on our environment eventually if it leaks.
It already is.
If and when. That's the old portion of the landfill. It's the nettle.
Liners fail.
Liners
always fail.
I know. But also our neighbors to the north
Right.
who depend on the water,
Yes.
you know, and as most of us know, Memphremagog is a lake, but in
It's a
actuality,
reservoir.
it's a reservoir, but it's
Yeah.
also a river that
Yes.
flows north.
All the
Everything
way.
flows north,
Yeah.
you know? And there's so much attention on Champlain, the cleaning it up. You never, ever hear anything about
Right. Well,
Mefre
here's a little
Magog.
factoid about Champlain indirectly. The leachate that for a while we were taking here is now going to Montpelier. They're not any better able to deal with it than we were. So the liquid is running off into the Winooski River. It's flowing its way down, where it will then run into Lake Champlain.
So in
getting-
Montpelier, they're treating it and then releasing
Yes.
it into the river
Yes,
as
so the
well.
PFOAs, PFASs that we can't treat here and they can't treat there, they're insoluble, they're still floating through, are going to collect in Lake Champlain, and it's floating down the Winooski. Maybe you could share that with your colleagues there.
Well, I'm sure they're very familiar with it. And
I
know-
doubt it. I don't think they know.
Oh, well, they know that we're not taking leachate any longer.
But I
in
don't think they
Newport.
know that it's going to Montpelier and Montpelier's taking it. They might want to know that before they turn their taps on.
Yeah. Okay.
There's something there's another bill for you.
Yes.
I think we're occupying all your time.
No, that's fine, you know, but, like we said earlier,
Uh-huh.
it would be nice to be able to get some of the benefits that
Right.
Chittenden County gets.
Yes.
And not get the things that, well, we don't want this, so we'll
Right.
send it over to the Northeast Kingdom, you know,
Right.
where they're likely to accept it because it's gonna help, you know, them in the short run.
They don't
maybe.
mind if they're poisoned. They don't
Yes.
mind if their kids are poisoned for generations.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. We unfortunately are about out of time. It goes really fast.
It does, it's a good
But
time.
I love your enthusiasm for making changes down there, and I'm delighted that you're representing us up
Well,
here.
thank you. I hope you feel that way after my term. I hope we can accomplish some things, and I hope if you or your listeners and viewers have some concerns or comments, that you'll certainly share them, not just with me, but also my other
Right.
colleagues as well.
Yeah, and I think we'll actually do something constructive about having social settings where we can all meet and you can all hear local concerns.
Yeah, I know the police chief and his staff, I think, recently met with some folks at a local coffee shop
They
and
did.
discussed some things, so
They
I
did.
don't see anything wrong with that.
Yeah. The more transparency, the better. The
Mhm.
more openness.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Pam.
See you again.